Hello, everyone. Phil Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is Friday, the 4th of March, 2022. And today's topic is Republican Reconstruction election shenanigans. While history professors, teachers, and National Park rangers eagerly lecture about Ku Klux Klan voter intimidation, they almost never mention the Republican Party's true goal for political power, which they hid behind a mask of racial civil rights or racial equity. And they also don't mention the electioneering shenanigans of the Republican Party. When President Andrew Johnson tried to implement a post-war Reconstruction program modeled after the one Abraham Lincoln had started in December 1863, when the Civil War was still in progress, Congressional Republicans blocked him. They had little interest in reconstructing the impoverished South. Their chief aim was really to ensure that the former Confederate states were readmitted with Republican-controlled puppet regimes that would practically guarantee the infant GOP would remain in power in Washington indefinitely. It is a little-known fact, for example, that Johnson's successor to the White House, Ulysses Grant, was the choice of only a minority of white American voters, despite his popularity as a war hero. His 53% to 47% majority of the popular vote resulted from a decisive edge among blacks, particularly ex-slaves. Under Congress's Reconstruction plan, no Southern state could be readmitted to the Union unless it ratified the 14th Amendment and wrote a new state constitution satisfactory to that Congress. That meant mandatory black suffrage for the delegates to the Southern state conventions that would draft those new constitutions, even though there would be no requirement that Northern blacks also have a right to vote in their own states. Ulysses Grant's 1868 party platform was carefully worded to require universal male suffrage for all Union loyal members of the Southern states, regardless of race, while setting aside suffrage requirements in the Northern states as a state's right. The president, thus, would only require black male suffrage in the South, not the North. And you note also the careful wording of his plank would mean that people who had been in the Confederate Army may not be able to vote in some of those Southern states. There was an implication in that plank of that coming, being one of his policies. A quick glance at the Wikipedia's 1868 presidential election map shows the results of the Congressional Reconstruction Plan, not Johnson's presidential one. Only 2 of the 11 former Confederate states, Georgia and Louisiana, voted against Grant. Virginia, Mississippi, and Texas were not permitted to vote at all because they had not yet formed Republican vassal regimes. And Congress quickly moved to punish Georgia by throwing her out of the Union a second time and again placing her under martial law. Their action was triggered in part by the vote for Grant, but also of the vote against Grant, but also by a foolish attempt among Georgia's white Republican and Democrat legislators to remove 28 black legislators because the state's hastily written carpetbag constitution failed to specify that blacks could be office holders, even though it did stipulate that they could be voters. And notwithstanding that the Republican Congress had approved that very constitution, they required Georgia to reinstate the black legislators and remain out of the Union until January 1871. Although Louisiana Republican Governor Henry Warmoth hurriedly passed legislation giving his party the ability to determine election results by arbitrarily counting and or rejecting votes through a Republican-controlled returning board, he concluded that he did not then have the military might to enforce the board's results if those results were against the popular will. After Grant was inaugurated, however, Warmoth intended, and he was planning, that the Louisiana Republicans would use their own militia and even at times the U.S. Army as a last resort to enforce the state's returning board counts in future elections. Such would be the pattern of all elections in Louisiana up until 1876. Finally, the curious student will note that Florida's 3 electoral votes also went to Grant, even though the state reported no popular vote. To the dismay of Florida Democrats, the state's carpetbag governor declined to hold elections for the 1868 presidential candidates. Instead, he autocratically instructed his Republican-controlled legislature to designate 3 electors that would be sent to Washington to cast Florida's vote for Grant in the 1868 Electoral College. So to learn more about Grant and his presidency, consider my book here, U.S. Grant's Failed Presidency. It's $22 at Amazon, $25 if you want to buy an autographed copy from me. Just email me, Phil, PHIL_Lee, LEIGH at me.com. If you'd like an autographed copy, I'll sell it for $25 and cover the postage here in the United States. Just email me, as I say. Also, I would like to recommend that if you like my books, go to my Amazon webpage, Philip Lee, and take a look at the books. If you like them, buy them, and if you buy them and you like them, please give them a 5-star rating. It helps us out. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.